When I was around 12, I went with a friend to a science museum in Amsterdam. I had a great time. There were a lot of small experiments that were showing physics and chemistry principles, but what made the biggest impression on me was a video game. Somewhere in the back was a PC setup with a game where you had to navigate a paper plane and use warm air currents to reach goals. Fun stuff. When I was playing Typewriter, my mind immediately went back to this memory, even though this game is not about science but typography and history. In this game, developed by the French developer Cosmographique, you play a colon. Yes, a colon. You know, the punctuation. With this double dot you traverse 9 levels, including 1 bonus level, divided in 4 stages. Usually 2 platforming stages and 2 light puzzle stages. Each level has a different font as a theme, for example Gothic, Times and Helvetica. Along the way in each level you can collect 26 letters as collectibles and 6 asterisks. No, not asterisks, asterisks, the punctuation. Every asterisk collected unlocks a written piece of history of that font. In the meantime, there's a timer running on the background. This is what you do in Typewriter, collecting letters, reading the history and speedrunning through stages. I first played this game on my Vita and afterwards on the PS4 to capture the footage. Both versions are practically the same. What about the presentation? Well, the presentation is very abstract. The foreground, where the platforming and the puzzles take place, are black shapes and letters, or in some levels, white shapes and letters. The backgrounds are more detailed, with a different theme for each font. All in all, it's very basic but functional. So the graphics are simple and functional, and the same can be said about the sound effects. They are subtle and unremarkable. One thing Typewriter really excels at is the soundtrack. Each level has its own track that reflects the style of the level's background. So the Gothic level has a Gregorian soundtrack and the Western-styled Clorendon sounds like an Ennio Morricone piece. So, what did I think of the game? To be honest, I'm not a fan. The biggest problem is the colon. The nature of this punctuation is that it consists out of 2 parts, 2 dots, and this is really decreasing the accuracy of the platforming. Whenever you land on the edge of a platform, and this happens quite often, one of the dots falls down and drags the other one with it. Also, the dots sometimes get split, which results in an instant death. The platforming feels imprecise, kind of the same like that Little Big Planets game also have. Lastly, the dots have a bouncy feel, and because they are attached to each other, the bounce tend to be unpredictable. You usually get the right way, but the momentum that you get depends on the position of the second dot. Well, it's hard to explain. Either way, I don't like the controls. Another thing I don't like is the abstractness of the graphics. This game is by no means interesting on the visuals, with an exception of the bonus level, which is funnier and there it works. On the other end, I did like the soundtrack and the history parts of the game. It's nice to read about the different fonts and how they were developed. This didn't help in the end though, and I felt bored about halfway the 3 hours that the game takes. Some cheap deaths and repetitive visuals made me actually put down the game a few times, and that's not a good sign for a game this short. An interesting narrative or background story could have saved this game, like it did with Thomas is Alone, also a very abstract game. But there's no real story in Typewriter. So in the end, I cannot recommend this game to anyone, unless you're really into speedrunning or into typography. If this game was playable in a museum or exposition about typography or the history of writing, it would have been a great fit though. Like with the paper plane game. But what happened to the paper plane game in the Science Museum? And why didn't it remind me so much of Typewriter? Well, when I arrived home from the museum that day, I started looking for the game and I actually found a Share version. I was so happy. But in the end, it was not the same. It started to feel repetitive and I had way more fun playing it in the museum. Probably the same would have happened with Typewriter. So this was my first ever review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments. Any feedback is appreciated. And if you actually enjoyed the video and you want to see more, please like and subscribe. This was Stijn from Annex Gaming. Tot ziens en goodbye.